Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Celluloid History Life is a Mystery channel. And as usual, a particular welcome to fans of the Kildares, Rebecca Fishpond, Open Up, and not forgetting Emergency Exit. Yeah, very warm welcome back to the channel. Hope everyone's well. Hope everyone's having a good evening. This Wednesday evening, halfway through the week. Yeah, see what we've got on the agenda today. As usual, I've been checking out the old BBC Politics, Daily Politics show. I did watch some of Prime Minister's questions. I didn't see them all, but I saw about two thirds of PMQs, as they call it. I think it's about 2/3. Yeah, it's there's a few things to discuss today. Maybe not quite as dramatic as you might expect on Prime Minister's Question Time Day. I hope everyone enjoyed yesterday's bulletin, where things got fairly deep and almost, one might even say, theological. Yeah, I mean, one thing that struck me when I was thinking about what am I going to say today, was just how up in the air politics is, big news stories like the Tel Aviv versus Aston Villa football match, which is under threat due to violent football hooligans for the Tel Aviv club, who've been politicized by authorities into sort of representing the Jewish faith, when I really where you could argue the only thing they represent is a bunch of violent blokes, isn't it? Really, but stories like that, plus this government led inquiry into the grooming gangs, that's and all sorts of turmoil. Apparently, there's four victims who were part of the process have now backed out of left the process because they're not happy with the way it's being run, being the process is being accused of being a cover-up. The point I'm making really is that the reason why Celluloid History, Life is a Mystery, got fairly deep and theological yesterday is I believe that the only way some of these big issues in politics and UK culture are going to be resolved is by looking at things in a measured, empirical way. There's a lot of, the thinking is at the moment that there was a fellow called Steve Baker, who's a Tory, but he seems to have his head screwed on, was saying a few weeks back, I think that was on the Daily Politics as well, that the axis of politics is shifted away from, I think the sort of traditional axis is generally economics, really, wealth disparity and things like that, and wealth distribution. But economics, let's just call it economics. But the axis around which politics now revolves, if you like, is what's let me just try and remember the terminology. What Steve Baker from the Tories described as communitarian nationalists. That was it. Communitarian nationalists versus cosmopolitan globalists. It was the terms. Those are the two terms he used. I I think he was quoting some other political theorists. I don't think he made up those terms. So yeah, communitarian nationalists versus cosmopolitan globalists, and in his view, the likes of the Reform Party represent the communitarian nationalists, and it's becoming increasingly obvious that Robert Jenrick wants a piece of that action as well, doesn't he? Yesterday he was calling for banning the burqa, which is a bit of an old political chestnut of the well, let's call it the right wing, and the cosmopolitan globalists are purportedly people like what you might call well, I suppose your Blairites and your Starmerites, and various other prominent members of the current Labour Party, perhaps the Liberal Democrat Party as well. But I mean, from where I'm sitting, it seems that Starmer's very much trying to. Well, that's one of the things he gets accused. One of the things he gets criticised for is it's not easy to know what he stands for, isn't it? So I mean, Starmer appears to be sort of busy trying to sort of forge an identity for himself, doesn't he? Whether he's a cosmopolitan globalist or not, I'm not entirely sure. But let's put it this way: the jury is certainly out, isn't it? And only today he was getting. Earlier on today, he was getting accused of. I'll read out the guests that they had on the show in a sec, but he was getting accused of the Labour Party, basically. Not just Starmer was getting accused of, not just sort of constantly testing the wind of public opinion as to what their policies are, sort of, and changing and having nothing definitive that defines them, and not knowing what they really truly stand for, I mean, traditionally in the post-war period, the Labour Party stood for strong working class unions, didn't it? Yeah, that's one definition of what the Labour Party traditionally stood for, or has stood for. Maybe perhaps even. You could say even pre Second World War, between the wars as well. The mining industry and all that, steel industry. Anyway, yeah. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there slightly. I will just read out who was on this Daily Politics show today. You had. A lady called Ella Whelan, who's a journalist from Spiked magazine, that sort of online magazine, political magazine. Ella Whelan, I believe that they're predominantly known for promoting right-wing libertarian views, with a smattering of perhaps left-wing libertarian. So the emphasis on Spiked magazine appears to be libertarianism. So she was there. You had Polly Billington, MP from Labour, representing the government, and you had a fella called Gawain Towler from the Reform Party, and it was hosted, as it usually is. It was hosted by Vicky Young, BBC's journalist, Vicky Young, and yes. One of the first items was the fact that everyone's been worrying that inflation is going to be going up, but apparently the rate of inflation has stayed at 3.8% for the last 3 months, which is a relief for the government, I guess, a relief for economists that work for the government, because I think they were worried it was going to go up from that, so the hope is that inflation's coming under control, Um, but it might take some time before you see the benefits on your supermarket shelves. They were telling us, Second item they were talking about was the upcoming budget that Rachel Reeves is going to be getting together. Reportedly, it's going to probably involve taxation of the wealthy, and they cross-questioned Polly Billington about that, and she came out with the old cliche about how the Labour governments traditionally like to tax people with the broadest shoulders more than others. Basically there's a bit of speculation about where these tax increases are going to come from. From Rachel Reeves. She's been under a lot of pressure, hasn't she? And there's one or two prominent members of the government. Rachel Reeves is one of them, I believe, who have they've decided to start talking about Brexit being at least partly to blame for the current economic problems in the UK, which was an area where until recently no one really wanted to go, wasn't it? Because it was a democratic vote. 52% of the UK population voted to leave the EU. 48% voted to stay. It was a close vote, but the general mainstream politician line has been, I respect the vote of the UK public. Blah. Now, so there is speculation as to whether the government is going to go down the line of start using the argument of trying to rejoin the single market or rejoin the EU completely. There's speculation about that going on, but the counter argument to the likes of prominent politicians like Rachel Reeves blaming Brexit is just that no, it's Rachel Reeves' fault. It's for making a pig's ear of the economy. It's quite a tough job to sort of out pig's ear Liz Truss, God bless her, isn't it? But nevertheless, Rachel Reeves is getting, she's under pressure basically. So that's the point. But so no one really knows where these tax cuts are going to be coming from yet. But what they were saying today was that they're probably going to come. Basically, the government are trying to find ways of raising tax and in such a manner that is going to hit the pocket of the very wealthy rather than the less wealthy. To sort of summarise it. So watch this space, sort of thing. You had rather predictably Gawain Towler from the Reform Party was. What was that phrase he came out with regarding prosperity? He said, or he claims it's not possible to tax your way into prosperity, But presumably the sort of politics that he believes in as a member of the Reform Party is, he hasn't got a problem with a small percentage of people being very prosperous at the top, which is, to be fair, that's what we've got under a Labour government at the moment, isn't it? But I suppose the point I'm trying to make is that it's all very well saying you cannot tax your way to prosperity, but it depends it depends what your priorities in life are. I suppose it's ideas like without getting too Woodstock or I was going to say tambourine bashy. That usually refers to Christianity, doesn't it? Well, without getting too Woodstock about it. What are your priorities in life, and how much money does community spirit cost? But there you go. But so in that sense, well, I suppose it's another way of saying what's your definition of prosperity? What for you is the meaning of quality of life? So it's all very well saying you can't tax your way into prosperity. You can't tax everybody into prosperity. No, You know, I suppose it's like this. That's the point, isn't it? Really, but yeah. What else do we have? The subject of gambling came up. That was quite interesting. By the way, we've passed the 15-minute mark. As I've said a few times before, it's not a good idea to be throwing paper aeroplanes around at the back, and please do pay attention, because it won't be long till actually I think it's tea time now. I might be past tea time actually, but anyway, suffice to say, pay attention. I won't go too far past the 30-minute mark, I don't think, this evening. I'm sure everyone will be pleased to know. The subject of gambling came up, and that was quite interesting, because you had this lady Ella Whelan from Spike magazine was quite sort of feisty, quite a feisty, cutting journalist actually. She was going down the old argument of basically Polly Billington who was representing the government was all for the gambling industry being an area where a government is certainly within its rights to raise money from, raise taxes from, and the subject of how gambling can cause, real problems in society, suicide, and how it's an addiction, and that came up, and Ella Whelan from Spiked magazine was rather feistily pointing out she seemed to have a bit of an obsession with the working class, actually, God bless her, this Ella Whelan. She kept on saying she characterised gamblers as working class blokes, tend to be old working class blokes that like a flutter, and there's nothing wrong with it, leave them alone. And she accused Polly Billington of the government of being a Puritan, you're ruining their fun, you're ruining what's that fella from the that cartoon, was it Daily Mail or Daily Mirror, Andy Capp, you're ruining Andy Capp's flutter on a Wednesday night, and Polly Billington was sort of trying to point out at various once or twice that you're oversimplifying who the average gambler is, and you've got to, I think she said you've got a bit of a patronising attitude just towards who the average UK gambler is. I mean, there could be, I suppose the point Polly Billington was making is there could be some fairly desperate, fairly young people involved, who have got a gambling problem, kind of thing, And so this Polly Billington this lady Ella Whelan, as I say, Spike magazine that she works for is reportedly a predominantly right-wing libertarian. There's a guy called Brendan O'Neill. I think he's still one of the main honchos in it. I think he might have written. For Spectator before, stuff like that, which is a right-wing magazine, isn't it? Anyway, I think he's involved with this Spike magazine. This Brendan O'Neill chap. Yeah, she was, basically accusing the government of being Puritans, and so, but as I say, she every time she opened her mouth, she seemed to be quite patronising. Sort of, she seemed to have a bit of a sort of obsession with the working class, sort of in a rather patronising way, I found. Gawain Towler's contribution to the whole thing about the gambling was, if you throw too much red tape at stuff, if you throw too much red tape and stuff like something like gambling, and if you tax it too much, and if you make it too awkward for legal gambling to operate in the UK, then all that's going to happen is you're going to drive it underground, which is a very similar argument that you often hear about boxing, isn't it? The idea being there's going to be fist fights for money, whether they're legal or not. Which is quite a sort of quite a sort of let's say a violent and unpleasant part of the underworld, isn't it? I guess. fans of Fight Club and fans of Guy Ritchie movies like Snatch will bear witness to that. Says he's probably watched too many British crime movies. But you get the picture, yeah. So gambling's one of those things like boxing that the argument is it'll go underground if you don't have a legal, a legalized gambling industry. I must admit, I tended to agree with most of what Polly Billington from the government was saying about gambling. I think it's. I suppose one of the reasons it does exist is so it doesn't go underground. Fair point from the guy from Reform in a sense, but if it must exist, I mean, it's fair game for taxation. I would suggest. I mean, I think it was the guy from Betfred was on the news. I think it was yesterday or the day before, sort of saying that if the government taxes the gambling industry too much, my company, all my shops will go into liquidation. My heart, I'll speak for myself. My heart doesn't really bleed for a sort of tycoon of the gambling industry, particularly. Not so much as it would bleed for, someone trying to, run the healthcare industry or something of that nature, I'll move on to another subject. But suffice to say, yes, gambling probably would go underground, wouldn't it? If it gets meddled with too much, if it's made too difficult to gamble legally, it will go underground. But it does appear to be pretty much a bit rife, out of control, doesn't it? There's a lot of online gambling, isn't there? And it's the point about it causing suicides and all sorts was made, and which is no doubt true. So yeah, there's it's probably for another video, isn't it? But there's certainly a lot of arguments against gambling. I would venture to suggest. They went on to a subject of Green versus Reform. They had a clip of Zach Polanski from the Green Party saying basically, watch out, Labour, we're gunning for you. We've come to replace you, basically. Polly Billington from the government had to sort of defend that, and it was quite notable what she said, actually. I've already made the point that I'm not too enamoured with Zach Polanski's brand of left-wing populism. I'll be interested to see how it pans out. But as I've made the point before, he's on record as actually just saying, he wants to fight for Nigel Farage's own game, and just sort of he wants a sort of populism movement of the left kind of thing. So it remains to be seen how that pans out. But it's not. I've made points in previous videos that I'm a little bit sceptical of radical populist left-wing politics. Is quite a mind-boggling prospect. It might be one way of putting it. But Polly Billington defended the government by saying that Labour. She made the good point, actually, which I thought was a valid point, saying it's no use. She basically made the point that idealism's no good unless you're in power. She basically made the point you have to be in power to make a difference. Because what Labour are getting accused of is not knowing what they stand for, not being left-wing enough, and by the Green Party, and apparently quite a few people are defected to Green from Labour. But so I thought that was quite a good point. But she also made the point that that Labour wants to attract people from all across the political spectrum. Now, I thought that was quite interesting, because that was almost like a giveaway of saying, you know, that the Labour Party's, you know, more right wing than it used to be, basically, you know, less socialist. The idea that, you know, we want to attract, you know, not only do we want the Green vote, we want the Tory vote, we want the Reform vote, the Liberal Democrat vote. It was a bit of a giveaway that, you know, it was a bit. I mean, I'm a Labour voter, as I've explained before, but it was a bit of a giveaway of sort of, you know, we don't care what we do as long as we're in power, you know. But as I mentioned to someone earlier today, I mean, there is a sense isn't there, that that's the name of the game in politics, isn't it? You know, not a lot can be achieved unless you're in Downing Street, can it? You know. So there was that. Yeah, it was quite a good. Yeah, well, it was quite an interesting little discussion about why the Labour Party are losing members to the Green Party, and etc. etc. What else do we have today? Yeah, there's, I mean, a lot of. I'm aware that time is rolling on a bit. We'll include another couple of topics. I think we're going to have there'll be another bulletin tomorrow from the channel. You know, we're raring to go. You know, bring on those offers. Channel 5 and Coca-Cola. You know, we'll gladly host the Coca-Cola Christmas advert for the right price. You know, yeah, tally ho. You know. Anyway, yeah, the story, the big story about the national inquiry into the grooming gangs. As I say yesterday, the eventually mainstream media and the government outlined the grooming gangs as a Pakistani grooming gang, which caused a lot of what's the word? Well, controversy, and essentially the sort of the delicate subject of identity politics is why this case is in turmoil. That's still the reason why this case is in turmoil. Apparently, four victims have left the process because they don't trust it, and so certainly the first a large fraction of Prime Minister's questions was Kemi Badenoch firing accusations at Starmer and his cabinet for, well, Starmer and what's she called, the safeguarding minister, Jess Phillips. She called for Jess Phillips to be fired at one point, actually. Kemi Badenoch. Yeah, the charge is that you know, that one of the most interesting charges is that the only reason why they're having the inquiry is that Elon Musk stuck his big wooden spoon in, as is his wont. Elon Musk stuck his big spoon in and brought up the issue a few weeks back, wasn't it? Or was it a month or two back? And because up till that point, like Starmer at one point said he didn't want to have an inquiry. Because he didn't think that one was necessary and stuff, didn't he? And then, so that, yeah, I mean, the idea of Elon Musk dictating what UK politics is not very encouraging, is it? But anyway, the inquiry's going ahead now for one reason or another, and maybe it is predominantly because Elon Musk stirred the pot. They're having this inquiry, and Starmer was defending it, saying that you know, they will sort of leave no stone unturned and they will not shirk any issue. I mean, I think the charge from the right is going to be that they'll be too scared to sort of pinpoint ethnicity. They'll be too scared to talk about the fact that the members of this particular grooming gang were exclusively Pakistani. and they'll be too scared to delve into whether it was it some sort of ideological sickness sort of thing, like um, uh, you know, regarding targeting Caucasian girls, and was it some kind of spirit? They were too scared to delve into theological stuff and spiritual stuff, and as well as the psychological stuff. No doubt they'll be having a few expert opinions from psychiatrists, and as well as police officers and what have you in this case, won't they? They've promised to be thorough, basically. I mean, it's a bit. I know we've just gone past 30 minutes. Thanks for being with me, and we'll be wrapping it up soon. And hope everyone has a good Wednesday evening. Hope everyone's doing well halfway through the week. But yeah, it's a bit. I found Badenoch's questioning a bit. I mean, to be fair, I think she was among the people that kind of noticed quite early on that there shouldn't really have been any reason for any sort of delay in doing what was best for the victims in this case, but nevertheless, as I was touching on yesterday, it's a bit of a hard act to follow yesterday in terms of the theological and philosophical stuff, but don't worry, you ain't seen nothing yet. The leading cutting edge current affairs channel, Celluloid History of Life as a Mystery. But yeah, sorry, I'm doing me Ronnie Corbett there, but I was just making the point that it's Badenoch's fairly accusatory questioning on this grave and serious matter. It kind of it did make quite uncomfortable listening in a sense. I mean, of course, Kimi Badenoch is a black lady herself. The grooming gang has been outed as I think it's exclusively Pakistani. I don't think there are any Caucasian members of that particular criminal grooming gang. I made the point yesterday that there was a lady called Shabna Begum that pointed out that statistically, sexual violence and violence towards women is sort of demonstrates equal numbers regardless of ethnicity, whether you're white, whether you're Asian, when I say Asian, I'm including Oriental races in that, I guess. And I was just a bit worried yesterday that does white, black, and Asian cover all bases. I think anyway. That's what I mean. Everybody, Shabna Begum made the point that it doesn't matter what race you are, all races are culpable when it comes to sexual violence against women. But it did. It nevertheless, it was sort of notable as Kimi Badenoch as a black leader of the opposition. It left quite a strange atmosphere, sort of, because it's kind of like sometimes it gets accused of being a dog whistle, doesn't it? I'll spit it out. I'll try not to beat around the bush around his issues, but obviously the accusation often levelled at Reform is that they're targeting a certain type of white working class voter that embraces a certain type of white working class what's the word? Embraces a certain type of white working class desire to sort of either return or maintain certain white British values, So it did make quite strange viewing Kimi Badenoch sort of using language that sort of would appeal to that demographic, I don't think Kimi Badenoch is kind of going in as quite as much into Reform territory as Robert Jenrick is, who appears to be sort of waiting to depose her. It appears, but there we go. I mean, but as I said, I'll wrap it up. But yeah, my view is that these deep and these deep issues that UK politics currently finds itself tackling are gonna be resolved by some measure of scientific, empirical sort of approach, as far as I'm concerned, rather than an emotive approach. You know, the fact that the UK is kind of appears to be in a period of politics which is predominantly revolving around the axis of identity. As I say, this fella Steve Baker, that from the Tories, said the other week. Yeah, before I tie my brain in knots, I'm going to wrap it up. But I wish everybody, wish everybody a good Sunday, a Wednesday evening. And don't worry, we will. The channel will return with these important issues and solutions for them, hopefully, as our status as leading UK political and cultural discussion program should, you know, as our status as that, whatever I just said, should, what's the word? Be able to provide, you know, we should be able to, you know, provide not only stimulating discussions, but offer some, hopefully offer some ideas for solutions, you know. So my thanks to the production team this evening. Thanks to the camera operator, plural. Thanks to the stylist, and yeah, thanks to my production team as always. I'll be back to well, I think we'll be back tomorrow. Not quite sure what time we're back tomorrow, but it'll be sometime in the afternoon, I would imagine. So everybody, make sure you look after yourselves, and you know, always remember, when you're making political points, it always pays to slow down the speed of the words that you're saying, in order that they carry more emphasis. Good night. I'll see you soon. Good night.
Don't give me no back talk, sucker. Quit your jibber jabber.